Hi everyone. My name is LTJG Taylor Krabiel. I'm from NOAA, NOAA in particular, and today I'm going to talk about historical hydrography, creating a nautical chart from the ground up using only historical and manual methods. Big mouthful. I decided to call it How I Learned to Forget the Ping and Love the Lead Line. So as I said, I'm from NOAA. I'm part of the NOAA Corps. If you don't know what the NOAA Corps is, that's okay. Most people don't. My father did it when I got into it too. So it's 350 people. It's a uniformed service, not military. We drive the ships for NOAA, so 16 ships. We fly the airplanes. You may have heard of the Hurricane Hunters. I say those kind of the rock stars of our group. But I'm not on that side. I'm on the maritime side. In particular, I'm on the hydrography side where we go out. We survey the ocean. We update the nautical charts. NOAA's in charge of safe navigation in America. And well, because of all that, I look at charts all day for my job because I have to drive the ship. And I also look at charts all day because I have to update the charts constantly. So I'm constantly thinking about charts. And I also love maps and I love old stuff. So two came together and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be really funny to make an old nautical chart from the ground up? Wouldn't that be hilarious? So I did. So I created for myself a project. And my goal was to create a beautiful, quote unquote, nautical chart from the ground up using only historical methods and manual techniques. I wanted to look like this. This is the first ever chart made of New York City by the Coast Survey by the United States government in like 1846, I want to say. God, I hope I didn't say that wrong. Beautiful chart. Absolutely gorgeous. Zoom in here on Brooklyn and New York. Gosh, just gorgeous, right? I wanted to make something like that, but I'm going to temper my expectations to the first actual chart created by Coast Survey in 1835. Little fun fact there if you ever want to win a trivia thing. This is the first one ever made. It's still beautiful, but maybe not as gorgeous. So I temper my expectation to that. So if you could temper yourself to these expectations too. So the rules. I gave myself rules because I don't like myself. I gave myself some rules about this. So I got to start with a blank map. Got to start with a blank piece of paper. Got to do everything by my hand, my own hands. I realize I'm not anywhere near the microphone. Hopefully I'm loud enough. So I got to do everything by my own hands. I got to make everything using manual methods, quote unquote manual. So no electronics if I can avoid it. I cheated. I did use some electronics at some points. It's got to be using methods that are actually well established. Can't just make things up out of the air. And finally, it's got to be accurate as possible, right? Like I would like to navigate by this chart at some point. It'd be cool. So all right. So doing all my research and everything, I'm going to boil everything down for everyone here. But there are 4 components to making a nautical chart from the ground up. First, start with planning. Then you go to the land survey. Then you got to do hydrography. Then finally get to do what everyone here loves, which is the cartography. That's right, there's 3 steps before we get to everyone here. So planning portion, right? Planning is just like getting a house, right? It's location, location, location. And that location that you're going to be doing it at, you need 2 components about it. 1, there needs to actually be a need to go there. And 2, you actually have to be able to get materials there. You may want to go up to the Bering Strait and chart it back in the 1800s, but you may not have the tools to get up there. So like as I showed you, the first one, New York City, pretty big need. Can I get materials there? Yeah, I can get materials there. And the next is the paper and scale, right? You got to actually pick your paper size, and you got to pick a scale for that paper size that both matches your location and matches the area that you're surveying. We're kind of still doing this still to this day with electronic stuff as well, just on a different kind of level and thing, but these are what they needed to do. So I had to do this myself. I guess I'm loud enough. So the area I chose is The Hague in Norfolk, Virginia. Why did I choose The Hague? Well, let's go with the second part here. I lived right here, so I could get there pretty easily. I pretty much pass it every day. I could smell it every day. So boom, second part, we're good. All right, what about the first part? Is there a need? This is the current survey chart of the location. Pretty beautiful. It says 4 feet all the way out to the tip of The Hague. Let's take a look at this. About 3 weeks ago, I went out there and took a picture of it at medium low, mean low tide. So I took a picture of The Hague at low tide. You'll notice that's not 4 feet. I'm gonna go with that's 0 feet. So, hey, we got a need to survey it. So, all right, now let's move on to the next part. Planning, paper, and scale, the fun stuff. I gotta pick a paper that's easy to access, can fit this area. Keep in mind this area is not that big. It needs to be a paper that's got to be the right piece of size. So, what's an easy access piece of paper that's not that big? That's right, the old 8x11 printer paper. Boom, did it. What about my scale? I'm not going to go into the math here, but essentially what I did for scale, because I want to do everything manually, I figured out my pace length. I walked back and forth across the Hague 4 times. Why 4 times? Because my dog didn't want to stop after 2 times. You divide that by 4, you get a bunch of math, and essentially my scale is going to be 1 in 1,500. Why? Because I wanted the longest part of the Hague to be 5.5 inches. So let's do a chart update real fast. Let's see, all that work, what does our chart look like so far? All right, got a piece of paper. All right, so we've got the first part done. Now we're going to do the land survey. That's right, before we go in the water, we've got to do a land survey. So part of doing land survey boiled down to this. You got to get your point 1, number 1 point. Got to put a dot on there. That's going to be your base station. Next, you got to do triangulation in there. I'm sure everyone here knows about triangulation. We'll talk about it anyways. Shoreline survey, then you got to do a cool shoreline survey. So point 1, back in the day, they would have gone out there and done astronomical observation. They would have occupied a base station for a long time and looked at the stars and all that kind of stuff. I have neither the expertise nor the time to do that. So I kind of cheated, and I found a base station. It's beautiful. It's just all for a second admire it. It's absolutely gorgeous. They're fun to find. Love benchmarks. It's located right here. Perfect location. So I went out there and occupied it using normal techniques and everything. Occupied it for 4 hours, and then got that data, put it through Opus, which if you don't know Opus is, that's okay. We can talk about it later. Put it through Opus, gave me some lat long location, also gave me a datum, bada bing, bada boom. Let's do a chart update. Look at that. I got a single point on there. We're getting somewhere. All right, what about triangulation? Triangulation, pretty simple, right? You got a point here, you got a point over there, you do some triangle math, some sine, some cosine, you know, your normal stuff. And you create a triangle over the area. This is actually the first triangulation map of the United States. Before we even put a single sounding in the water, we had to do all this. So we spent post-service, 40 or 50 years just doing this before they even got on the water. Can you imagine 40 and 50 years not doing your job? So this is me going out to do my triangulation. This is an old theodolite from a ship that's no longer around, the NOAA ship Whiting. I acquired it from a vault. And so it's really cool. It was a lot of fun to use. No electronics, which I thought was cool. Surprise, surprise, though, when you look through it, everything's upside down. So that was a lot of fun trying to find things upside down. Can't stand on your head. But this is it. This is an old theodolite. So I went in and I triangulated. You can see right here I'm on top of the base station starting off. All right, but what about checking my triangulation? Well, this is where it got really fun with mathematics, and I really love it. Not everyone has to love it. I made myself a Python script to make sure I went over and over and again. I don't think that counts as cheating in this project because it doesn't. All right. If you're interested in my Python script, I put it on GitHub with some information. But I pretty much use Vincent's paper and survey review and Ed Williams' Great Circle Math to do it. This is also really useful because then I could go for my single point and find the lat and long of each corner and know what is my lat and long of each corner when I put it on my chart. A lot of fun to do this. Love doing this actually. So let's do a chart update. We got triangles. It's coming through. You'll notice if you see the paper going around that there are more triangles than this one. This is just the nicest looking picture I had. I also love how it said science, adventure. So all right, so we're on to shoreline now. So shoreline survey, the technique I use is called intersection method. Right here they have a plane table and they were just intersection methoding it. So essentially what you do is you got your points of triangle and you take some bearings, right? You take your bearings, when those bearings all overlap, whoop, you got a point. I used my theodolite again because I didn't have a plane table. And so let's see what our chart looks like now. Oh, it's coming together. Obviously I did the rest of it as well. The reason why I left this one up here is you can see my chicken scratch of lines going out and seeing the intersections and seeing how it's developing. It's coming together, it's starting to look beautiful. So now we get to go into my favorite actual part, hydrography, which is the actual surveying of the water. So in hydrography, there's 3 points in hydrography where you need to know. And still to this day, this is the 3 things we need to know. We need to know our position, we need to know our depth, and then we need to be able to plot it. Position, nowadays you use fancy GPSs. Back then, they used 3-point sets and fixes. Matter of fact, you still do it today. Obviously, I did it. Depth, they would have used lead line or wire drag. I nowadays use a super high-tech multi-beam sonar, but I want to use a lead line. And then finally, plotting it, we use a 3-arm protractor for this. Nowadays, you use Esri, products. But that's a 3-arm portrait right down there. Anything, if you ever want to learn how to use it, highly suggest it. Right here, you can see these people actually going out there and doing the surveying. This is the left and the right surveyors. The right man is actually the senior officer. The left one is the junior officer. This guy here, 1, 2, 3, whoop, throws it down, throws his thing. They come over. They have to get their fixes fast. If they don't get their fix fast, they get in trouble. And then down there is a person doing this as they go along. So this is me doing it. So this is a 3-point section fix. So you label each section of the 3-point section fix. These are the things I'm taking the fixes on. A tree, a horse, and the end of this wall. And you label them with 3 letters. And then you take the angle between each of those in order to know exactly where you are. So think of it as A to B, B to C. So this is me out of my kayak on not a cold day at all. Very not cold. I froze my hands that day. It was not fun. I take out my sextant. And remember, they would have done this with 3 people. I got 1 guy. Take my sextant. Get an angle. I'm going to water real fast, sorry. Get an angle here. So sorry, I lost my voice. Got a guy on shore. He yellow mark. He writes that down. We use that for the tithe for later. Oh, thank you. Enjoy my video. So he marks that down for the tides for later and anything, and also for other information. And then I try to quickly, come on, Taylor, quickly get my next fix and everything. At that point, now I have my 2 fixes, and now you got to take my lead line. So you take your lead line out, you drop it in the water, and now you have your depth. And now that I have a time, I got my depth, and I got my angles, I'm all good. And you do this over and over and over again. And then, so finally, just because we had 2 people doing this, I had a guy on shore, I give him a hand signal, 1 arm meant, like, that's a good recording, 2 arms meant, get rid of that recording. I did not do that well. And how I knew it was going to be a good recording is I had some land monuments next to me, so that way I didn't drift. As it went on later in the day, I kind of started drifting, so those all went away. All right, so let's get a chart update. It's looking good. We actually got ourselves a chart. So these are all the soundings it took. No, that's not the depth. Those are just the sounding numbers. Okay, so now there's another problem here. There's something called tides out in the water. They kind of stink, but whatever, you gotta deal with them. So there is no tide station out where I was located. Actually, there is, but I don't know what the data is. Who knows who owns it? But so I had to make my own tide station there. And I didn't feel like standing out there forever and establishing a 19-year tidal datum. So I did some math. Essentially what I did is I found 2 tide stations north and south of me, did some triangle math, made a huge assumption that tides are linear across the water. They're not. But made a huge assumption, made myself my own tide differential thing, and we're all good. And now at this point you just do some basic tide math. Depth minus tide difference equals mean low or low water. That's the average low of the low water. That's what we use for our tide references in America. So yeah, this is me on a kayak, and that's kind of the math of how it works. So let's get a chart update. It's actually looking good. Actually got a chart here. Actually got some depths down there and everything. It looks great. This is what we would call a smooth sheet. You wouldn't navigate by this. This would then be submitted to other people for the thing everyone here loves, hydrography, for the cartography, sorry. At this point, your smooth sheet would semi-look like this, and you want it to look like this in the end. And so what they would do is now you condense your sound and you create some depth contours. You do add some navigational features in there. You mess around with your scale charting, and then you edit, you edit, you edit, you edit, and you edit. So just kind of go over some cool pictures here. These are some people actually doing the rechecking the hydrographer's work. Those are some notes that someone would have had, and this is them doing the 3-point fix again. This is them transferring the data to the chart, and this is actually a copper plate they're transferring it to. I tried to do that. It didn't go well. The answer is if you want to learn how to do that, you got to get good, and I'm not good. So get good, and it'd be really beautiful to do on your own. So let's do a chart update. Let's see how it looks. It's looking great. Got all my information in there. You'll notice I started adding other information there too, like the tide information, my north-south, all the stuff you need for a good map, right? And then finally, we got this, which is all the tides in there, and all the soundings in there too. And it looks absolutely beautiful, and that was the final piece of it. Except for I finally asked someone to give me some edits, and they gave me a lot of edits. So someday I'll go back and make those changes. These are cartographic edits, obviously. And you'll see as it goes around, you can make your own cartographic opinions of me, and I don't mind. So, but is it correct? I want to make an accurate chart, right? Is it correct? Let's look at it real fast. So here it is. Here's some information done by an actual multi-beam sounding of the area by a company. So for your convenience, I put up here the depth contour is at mean low water. And so we can compare mine to it, and you can see right here that I nailed it personally. I nailed it, right? Look at this. I mean, look, there's this island, right, of these 5-foot contours, and here it is right here, the island of 5-foot contours, exactly where it's supposed to be. Oh, and finally, look at this. Between this part right here and this part right here, which I've also labeled right here conveniently for your attention, is I have a 6.3 sounding. That's 6.35. It's right there. Nailed it. I got it. I'm going to say it worked. So what are the takeaways of all this, right? Nautical charts look the way they do today because of the process that it was to create them. Always one. Two, if someone says that they're afraid of lead line survey stuff, they're not afraid of lead line surveys because of the methods that I use to create it. That's actually really good. It's actually the data, age of data. And finally, making charts and maps from the ground up is fun. Here's my email address. Feel free to send me an email. Thank you so much. Sorry for going over time.